All right. Hello and welcome to the newest episode of the New Year Six podcast. Today I'll be continuing my conference preview and prediction videos as we wrap up the group of five, heading out to the Sun Belt. So, again, a conference with no change at that point. The only thing about them that's unique right now is they're the only one left with divisions. But outside of that, everything is the same for them. So, I'm going to get on with that. It's going to be the same format as all my previous videos. If you haven't seen those, we're going to start at the bottom of the conference, work my way up to the top of the conference, and along the way call out a player on the offensive and defensive sides of the ball that are due for a breakout season. So because the Sun Belt is still broken up into divisions, at least for the time being, who knows if they change in the future, I am going to start division by division. So I'm going to start in the East, 7th through 1st, go over to the West, 7th through 1st, final slide, and then a final prediction of who's going to win the actual championship game. So with that, in a sense, a little different, but let's get that moving along. So 7th place in the East. So this is a team that actually had a pretty good year last year. I don't consider them one of the historic favorites in the conference. I don't look at them as kind of one of the big players when it is all said and done. And I do anticipate them regressing back to the bottom of the conference. I just don't think it's in the cards for them right now. So with that, my 7th place team in the East will be Old Dominion. So again, solid year last year. Made it to a bowl game. Don't see that happening this time around. I think eventually it's the rest of the conference is going to catch up with them. I think it could be a pretty rough year, for Old Dominion when it's all said and done. I don't think they have a lot of highlights, specifically on the offensive side of the ball. Defense actually does have some points we can work off of, but I'll get to that in a little bit. But I do anticipate the team to regress pretty significantly year over year, all things considered. So when we look at the depth chart for Old Dominion and we look at their production across the board, O-line will be okay. You got two returners coming in on the left side of the ball, Santana Saunders and Stephon DuBose-Bourne. You bring in Zach Barlev from Illinois. He's a predominantly rotational piece that is going to be added to the starting lineup. So there's some promising pieces. Even the other guards and tackles there that haven't started significant minutes, but has played in a larger rotation role. They're going to be asked to step up this year. They expect to be bigger contributors to the team at large. But the O-line is not going to be too bad. The receiver core has some concerns in my eyes. They bring in Deontay Vines from Iowa, and Iowa receivers are not exactly top priority up there. And you combine that with Kelby Williams and Isaiah Page. I mean, a couple of guys that can get it done, but it's not one of the more impressive groups in the conference right now. So one of those guys is going to have to step up. At quarterback, they're all right. I like Grant Wilson. I think he's one of the better quarterbacks in the conference, and definitely someone that can help carry this Old Dominion team probably out of the basement when it's all said and done. But it's just going to be the weapons around him that are going to struggle. And then at running back, you have Aaron Young, who comes in from Rutgers and doesn't have a significant amount of playing time under his belt, but is looking to establish himself as the number one back for Old Dominion. Defensive side of the ball is where this team really picks up. It's probably the best D-line in the conference when it comes to who's coming back. Denzel Lowry is there. Amari Morrison, Chris Trinidad. So you bring all three of your starters back on the defensive line, and they're theoretically all coming back as seniors next year. So keep an eye on that D-line. That should be the priority item on Old Dominion's defense. The linebacker room is led by Jason Henderson in particular. He could be one of the best linebackers in the conference, but we'd like to see more out of the linebacker as a whole. It can't just be one guy doing everything for you there. Mario Thompson is one to watch out for. He had a promising year as a true freshman, but definitely wants to capitalize on it this year. And then the secondary, this is where basically everyone's new. You bring in Patrick Smith-Young. He comes in from North Texas. Jerron Manning comes in from community college. Angelo Rankin comes in from Richmond. Will Jones comes in from USF. Combine that with Rashid Reason, who I think actually is a pretty talented quarterback in his own right. But what does that chemistry look like for this team? What is that ease of access to a whole bunch of new guys playing together for the first time? How's that going to look for this team over the course of the season? I think it's going to take some time for them all to gel. So our breakout player on the offensive side of the ball, we'll go with Aaron Young. Again, comes in from Rutgers, 3-star recruit in the class of 2019. Those do not come to Rutgers, or those do not come to Old Dominion, frequently. I think it's something to consider when you think about the level of talent that's coming in. I know the guy has barely played, at Rutgers or in general, but if he can get that time and he can get that the ability to live up to that 3-star potential, Old Dominion will have a piece to the offense that they probably didn't anticipate having, right? If he ends up being an 800-yard back or an 8-touchdown guy, I don't think that's what they have him there to do. I think they have him to kind of just chip along. But if he ends up being something like that, Old Dominion may be in a better place offensively than I have him written down. So we'll look to Aaron Young to step up, to live up to that potential, to utilize the opportunity provided to him in his new home. And then on the defensive side of the ball, I'll go with Jerron Manning. So again, JUCO transfer, not a lot of tape on him, not a lot of experience from what I have seen. Again, I don't have JUCO tape. If you do send it to me, and I'll be free to I'll review it over. But from where I'm standing, he's the least experienced at the Division I level in this secondary, and that secondary needs a leader to step up. They need someone to rein the team in, and I imagine Manning is going to be that guy. I have the same if you've seen my other videos, you understand my logic where if you can go from JUCO or D3 or D2 and start at a Division I program, it's because you've earned your spot. I think that the head coach there wouldn't start Manning if he wasn't ready, and therefore Manning's going to earn that spot however he does. So I'm looking at Manning to step up for an Old Dominion team that definitely needs someone in the secondary to accelerate this program and accelerate this defense long term. So yeah, I'm going to look at Manning on defense and Young on offense for an Old Dominion team that I think is just going to have a tough year from top to bottom. I have a hard time seeing anything positive coming out of this team this year. But who knows? Can't be wrong, right? As we head over to 6th place, another kind of average team in the Sun Belt East, a team that kind of hovered around the 500 mark, and another team that I think is going to regress. Team that has no business regressing with the coach that they have. I think he's in the right spot. It's just not going to happen this year. With that, I'm going to give you my 6th place team in the East. That'll be Georgia Southern. So Clay Helton's there for year 3. I think this is a good hire overall. They haven't been world beaters yet. I'm curious what happens if they do have a bad year, because my thought process is that they're not going to be particularly great. I can be wrong. Don't get me, don't inflate it. I can definitely be inaccurate in some of these, but I think Georgia Southern's not going to be phenomenal this year. They're not going to be a threat for the conference. Nothing along those lines. So year 3 for Helton. Solid year last year, but I do think they're regrets. I don't think they end up in a bowl game. I think it's just going to be a below average year for Helton. Georgia Southern squad he's built there. So if we look at the depth chart and see where everyone's at, offense has its moments. So let's talk about them real quick. The O-line should be pretty improved. You bring in Kyle Frazier from Savannah State. Justin Kenyuk comes in from North Carolina, and you return 3 starters on the other side of the line: Bryson Broadway, Pishon Wembley, and Chandler Strong. So there's a lot of moving pieces at this current time, and there's a lot of experience there as a result of that. So I'm definitely looking forward to seeing, how that line performs, knowing that they should be one of the better ones in the conference overall. Receiver room is going to be average. It's led by Derwin Burgess, who I think is pretty legit. You add Dalen Cobb to the mix as well. So it's definitely got that 1-2 punch. You bring in Tyler Fromm as your tight end from Auburn. So there are definitely some intriguing pieces at the receiver room for Georgia Southern. It's a matter of how it comes together, but I don't think this is going to be the reason they lose games. They have a very inexperienced quarterback in Dexter Williams. He comes in from Indiana. How does that work with a new home and a new starting opportunity? Time will tell. But based on what we've seen, it's been very minimal, and I have a hard time, putting that into practice, knowing that, some of these other teams in this conference are bringing back, fine-tuned, experienced quarterbacks. Georgia Southern is not one of them. How do they make the most of a powerful quarterback transfer to their program, and how does he elevate this offense over the course of the year? Now, they do have Jalen White at running back, who I think is the best running back in the Sun Belt. So all else fails, and they need to lean on the run more. They have the option to do that. They have the offensive line to do it. Receivers are okay. So it may be a run-first defense for Georgia Southern this year, and I don't think there's any issue with that. When you have a guy who's looking to get 1,000 yards this year, Jalen White, he's never hit that mark, and I'm sure he wants to. He's a 10 touchdown guy. I'm sure he'd love to get 12, 14. And if it needs to be on the back of a performance like that, White is the guy for Georgia Southern. Now, on the defensive side of the ball, this is where I think it kind of levels out a little bit more. D-line is going to be solid. In particular, Davion Rhodes and Justin Rhodes. So I don't know if they're related, 2 brothers, something like that. But, I think those 2 in particular are ones you can take a look at and see these are going to be your impact players on the line. But it should be a pretty good line nonetheless. The linebacker room is going to be very top-heavy. Marquise Watson-Trent really elevates this linebacker room to one of the best in the conference. He's going to be one of your all-around playmakers. I don't know where he ended up in, all-conference preseason voting, but he should be first or second team when it's all said and done. And then the secondary is also a step up as well. It should be one of the better ones. You bring in Chance Gamble and DeAndre Morris, both from Kennesaw State. You add that to a secondary that's built around, Mark Stampley, Tyrell Davis, TJ Smith. Ultimately, every single one of them being a playmaker, every single one of them being someone who's ready to step up and, make a difference and make an impact for this team. So I hope that gets stronger the further back you go on defense. Offense, it's going to be strong in the trenches and strong in the run game. So we'll see what that looks like holistically. On the offensive side of the ball, our breakout player is going to be Dexter Williams. So, with that comes in from Indiana, had a performance against Ohio State. I think this was 2 years ago where, 107 yards and 2 touchdowns. I'm sure they were garbage time. I don't think he got much starting time at Indiana, but the way that I look at that is, again, if you can do it against Ohio State, you can do it against Georgia State. You can do it against, ULM, whoever you're going to play on your schedule this year, South Alabama, right? If you're doing it against one of the best athletic programs in the country, you can do it against a less funded, less attended team in your conference. So I think Williams should be a good stopgap, again, knowing that this is his final year of eligibility, that it gives him a chance to make the most of this and put himself and his team into a position to overcome obstacles and overcome expectations set by myself and others. So on the defensive side of the ball, I'll go to the D line. I'll go with Isaac Walker. So two and a half sack performance against ULM. That's what you want to see. I know ULM is one of the struggling programs in the Sun Belt, but that's still a big day. 2 passes defended against Georgia State. So the way I look at him, like you can get up on, up in the quarterback's face. You can, play in pass covered. I don't know if he's playing back. I don't know if he's just swatting it down at the line, but it's an aggressive form of, you know, playing defense. It's an aggressive form of, putting everything together. But I think Walker has already shown himself in a capacity, and maybe this just means evolving into one of the better players in the conference, if not the country. Maybe he has that type of breakout year. But I'm looking at Walker on defense, Williams on offense for a Georgia Southern team that I don't think is going to be particularly great this year when it's all said and done, but has some pieces that could take them in the direction that they need to go in as a program over the course of this year. So now we'll move on to 5th place. It's a team that is undergoing a little bit of a change. They don't have a new head coach and had a solid year last year, but I do anticipate them to regress within the conference. There's going to be some changes on the offensive side of the ball. There's going to be changes on defense. And it's just going to be a matter of how do we see these gel over the course of the year. And the unknowns are what prevent me from putting this team higher. But in 5th place, I will go with Coastal Carolina. So Tim Beck is back for year 2. Had a very promising year 1 with 8 wins. I think where we're at right now is I have them kind of around that 500 mark, around that bowl eligibility mark. There's just some unknowns for this team that are going to make it difficult to pick them to do anything more. So with that, on the offensive side of the ball, we'll go top and bottom. O-line should be one of the better ones. Should be around a top 5 O-line when it's all said and done. You have Nick Del Grand is coming back as your starter, as is Zovan Lindsay. You bring in Heston Edwards from Texas Permian Basin. I think I got that right. And then you have some rotational guys that are going to step up into the full-time starter role. So not too many questions on that front. Receiver room should be kind of slightly below average when it's all said and done. I like Kendall Carr at tight end, and then you bring in Viega from Penn State. That could be a promising addition, but not a lot of established receivers. I mean, maybe James Tucker. But outside of that, it's not a holistically deep team at that position from top to bottom. Ethan Vasco has gotten limited playing time in the past year. Obviously, they've had Grayson McCall as their quarterback forever. The Vasco era at Coastal Carolina begins this year full time. How does he adjust to being a full-time starter now? How does this team rally around him as a quarterback with a different set of skills? Time will tell. Now, you do have a great running back in Braden Bennett. I think he's going to be top 3 in the conference when it's all said and done. I'm sure he wants to be the reason Coastal Carolina wins games, and I'm sure he wants to get over 1,000 yards. I'm sure he wants to hit the 10 touchdown mark. Things that he has not done over the course of his collegiate career. Time will tell to see how he does that, but at this current time, I see him as one of the better running backs in this conference, top to bottom. Defensive side of the ball, I believe, is where this team will fall off. D-line is going to be in the bottom half of the conference. You bring in Najion Barber from South Carolina State. Interested to see what he's going to do. You pair that with Will Whitson. That's a piece of established production, and that's going to be your anchor on the line there. But outside of that, it's a lot of younger guys that have not played that much. On the linebacker side of things, you have Shane Bruce as your leading guy back there. But again, outside of him, what's your who's your number 2? Who's your big guy back there? Because right now I'm not really seeing one. So it's the same thing as the D line where you have one solid guy to elevate this team to at least lower middle. But outside of that, I'm thinking who's going to be the guy that steps up. Now, the DB room is going to be average to below average. It'll be a little bit better. You bring in, AJ Williams from Wake Forest. I think that's a big pickup at safety. Add that to Tobias Fletcher, his other safety back there, Courtney Eubanks at corner, Juan Powell at nickel. So there's definitely some playmakers back there that are going to make a difference for this, Coastal Carolina secondary this year. But, you got 5 good starters back there in the secondary. You got, a front 6 that is generally inexperienced or generally underskilled. So how is that going to look like in game 8 of the season when you're banged up and tired and, someone needs to take a play off? How's it going to affect the team long term? So on the offensive side of the ball, our breakout player, I will go with Ethan Vasco. So 2 highlight games to talk about. His game against Texas State, where he had 145 yards passing and 2 touchdowns. And then as a runner, 170 yards and a touchdown. So dual threat guy, definitely someone you want, on your team. Young guy that's going to be looking to continue to grow and to continue to learn in his role. And we do have some film of what that's going to look like. This may be, let's take a look. Yeah, this is some local television, but yeah, he just takes off. Can't get caught. Yeah, and a lot of stuff in the Sun Belt is just like local news covering their team, but you find what you can find, right? So I think it shows that Vasco is capable of separating himself from defenses with his legs. He beat you in the air. It makes him a dangerous player, but what does that look like over the course of the season? It's easy to get someone to, caught up, it's easy to get someone caught off guard when they've never played you before. But once there's some solid tape on you and, you've beaten some opponents and lost to some guys and, they know what your strengths and weaknesses are, how is he going to adapt? But I think Vasco is, good enough for the starting role and could be the next Grayson McCall for Coastal Carolina. I don't think a single fan out here is going to have an issue with that. So I'm looking at Vasco on offense. On the defensive side of the ball, I'm going to go with Najon Barber. So again, comes in from South Carolina State. 3 tackle performance against Georgia Tech. And that's FCS versus FBS, right? And that's FCS versus Power 4. I know Georgia Tech is not the top of Power 4, but that's still a 3 tackle performance. That's still something you are going to remember, on your collegiate football journey. So if you're ready to start at the nose tackle role, which it appears to be, then he'll have plenty of those opportunities over the course of this year and next year, seeing that he's a junior. So I mean, someone on that D-line is going to need to step up. He's going to be right in the middle, taking on protection from the center and guards. What holes is he going to fill and what role is he going to play? I think Barber is ready to step up and take that spot on this D-line, knowing that, at least from what I see, he's going to be the only one back next year. So they're going to roll. Coastal Carolina is going to need to rely on him having a big year to establish himself on this line for this year as well as the future. So I'm taking Barber on defense, Vasco on offense. For a Coastal Carolina team that I think is going to regress more towards the middle of the conference over the course of this year. Now in 4th, this is a team that, again, did all right last year. I anticipate them to be right around where they finished last year. It's going to be about a 500 team, middle of the conference, everything like that. I do think they have a good head coach who may be punching below his weight class at this point, but if he doesn't have a great year, I know he'll be around next year when it's all said and done. So in 4th place, I'm going to go with Marshall. So Charles Huff is back. He's honestly someone I thought would have taken a Power 5 job when Marshall was like clicking. But going 500 at Marshall is going to eliminate all of those options. But if you can get past that number, then we'll be talking. Then we'll be looking at some big time jobs sooner rather than later. But I think Huff is a pretty solid coach and can take this team to the next level. I just don't think it's going to happen this year in particular due to some thinness at some position group that we're going to see real quick. So we're looking at Marshall, starting on the O-line. Basically everyone is new, which is going to cause some concern. You do bring back Logan Osborne as your only starter on the offensive line. Everyone else is new. You bring in guys from Middle Tennessee, Baylor, Southern Miss, and Tulsa. They may be rotational guys at points. It may be just guys who have never really seen the field. Time will tell, but it's an O-line that is, generally speaking, very, very unproven. The receiver room follows suit. Now, you do bring in Elijah Metcalf from Tulsa. I think that is a impressive pickup. But outside of that, with the exception of maybe Carl Chester, it's a very unproven room. And they're going to want to prove themselves over the course of this year. Braylon Braxton comes in also from Tulsa. So I guess Marshall just kind of rated the Tulsa roster over the course of the year. Braxton is a solid quarterback from what we've seen. He should be towards the middle of the pack for Marshall in their quarterback situation this year. Probably the bright spot on this offense from top to bottom. Maybe one of the best position groups on this team, which is why they end up at about that 500 mark. And then the running back room is led by Jordan Houston. Hilton comes in from NC State. He'll be a value add, but again, has been passed on the NC State depth chart. How does that look like in a new depth chart when he's closer? We just haven't seen him play as much to get a full scouting report on what he's really like. So, defensive side of the ball, D-line will be okay. You have Mike Green, Tyquay's legs. It's kind of the opposite. You have all these transfers coming in on the offense. You got no one coming in on the defense and starting, and maybe that'll change over the course of the year. But those two in particular are ones you expect to have big years and be leaders on this team based on what they've done in the past. Linebacker room is looking a little dodgy. Ja'Cory Anderson is really your only piece of returning production. Outside of that, it's a lot of new guys. Which one of them is going to step up and make this team better as a result? And then your secondary is going to be average again. You do have some promising pieces in J.J. Roberts and A.J. McGee and Josh Moten. So you have some players to look forward to on that side of the ball. But again, I'm just not seeing anything spectacular that stands out as oh, that's one of the best in the conference. I don't see that with Marshall, which is why I have them towards the middle. And a lot of this is, again, due to returning production. So a lot of these guys have not stepped up yet. Doesn't mean they can't step up ever. But Marshall has definitely struggled to make these players known so far. And it may catch some opponents off guard. To me, it just makes it harder to evaluate, harder for me to plan certain wins versus losses. On the offensive side of the ball, I'll go with Jeremy Jones on that line. Again, guy comes in from Tulsa, 3-star recruit as a transfer. So that means probably unranked as as an original commit, but played well enough to step up as sorry about that. Step up as a transfer commit from Tulsa. He's going to be hanging on that right side of the offensive line and presumed to be a starter. Interested to see what he's going to bring to the program and what he's going to contribute over the course of the season here. Don't know a lot about him offhand. Again, very few moments where he's been able to play, but he's going to have his chances this year as he helps lock down the O-line for this team as a whole. On the defensive side of the ball, go with Landon Watson. Did pick up a fumble against Carolina Coastal. That's the type of big play that you want to get your limited playing time. So maybe it's someone got tackled on a punt or a kickoff and he picked it up. That's what you want to see. Being the difference maker for this team. 2 tackle performance against Georgia Southern. Again, get these small moments out of the way. He was doing that as a redshirt sophomore, expected to be the starter this year at one of your linebacker positions, and again make a difference, make an impact for this Marshall team. Someone needs to step up in that linebacker room. Can't just be Ja'Cory Anderson. Someone around who's going to need to deliver, and I think Watson is going to be that guy for Marshall based on the delivery of what we've seen in limited playing time so far. So Watson on defense, Jones on offense for a Marshall team that will be middle of the pack over the course of this season. So now we head over to third place. This is a team that I think took a somewhat good jump last year. I would anticipate them to be around this mark, if not a little bit higher than where they were last year. So if we see a lot of teams regressing, I think it's just because we have one team in particular that is going to start to progress. And this will be one of them. And they do have a new head coach, so it'll be interesting to see what that will look like. But third place in the East, I'm going to go with Georgia State. So Del McGee is now your head coach. He's running back coach for this team last year, and is going to be in his first full year. I think having a new head coach who's very familiar with the program, the players, does help out a lot. So they were in fifth place last year with above 500 with a bowl game appearance. I expect all of that. I just think it comes out a little bit in the wash, and they end up in third place in the East this time around this year. So what does this team look like now with a new head coach? So, obviously there's going to be some new guys coming in, but it's not particularly overwhelming. So let's just go position by position. On the offense, you have an O-line that is questionable. You have one starter coming back in Trevor Timmons, but from there you bring in a couple of guys on the left side. Kieran Mason comes in from Monmouth. Joshua Black comes in from Louisville. They're predominantly rotational guys. And then outside of that, it's rotational guys that are going to be asked to step up on all sides of the field. But you have that one right guard there. That's a little, it's a little glimmer of hope. But otherwise, I don't know how to evaluate this O-line, knowing that I haven't seen a majority of these guys play significant snaps. They're going to get their snaps. It just, it hasn't happened at this current time. On the, let's look at the receiver room real quick. I do like Taliki Williams. That's going to be your number one guy for this team. And generally, it's going to be one of the better rooms in the conference. It's a top 5 room. You have a good tight end in Chris Bird. You have a solid number 2 in Josias Cradle. So there's definitely some options on this team to pick from. It may be run first when it's all said and done, based on the fact that your head coach is a former running back coach, but you'll have your options at receiver, which is definitely a nice addition. On the quarterback position, you have Zach Gibson. He comes in from Georgia Tech. He's played sparingly over the course of his collegiate career, but as a result now, it's going to be the full-time starter. Interested to see how that's going to work. And then you have CJ Beasley, who comes in from Coastal Carolina. You have a running back coach as your head coach. This should be, music to Beasley's ears. You'll understand he probably will get the ball to chunk at the time. And Gibson and Beasley as room leaders are going to be towards the middle of the pack. So outside of the line, it should be a pretty productive offense for Georgia State this year. On the defense, it's a little different. They're struggling with the trenches on both sides. D-line is going to be questionable from a returning production standpoint. They got Henry Bryant third, but outside of that, it's a lot of guys that have not played a lot of meaningful minutes. Your linebacker room will be average. There's some playmakers back there for sure. Justin Abraham being the big one. But combine that with Josiah Robinson and Kevin Swint, and you have your options for everything going on right now on that side. So it looks like it's a pretty deep 1-2-3 room, but it should be towards the middle of the conference, given the comparison of what they're going to go up against. Secondary will be towards the middle as well. You bring in Kenyatta Watson from Georgia Tech. He's played, very limited minutes, but really the ones you got to look at are Jeremiah Johnson, Cody Jones, and Gavin Pringle. That's a 1-2-3 punch that is going to take this Georgia State team to the next level when you really get everything, all things considered. So defense, not looking elite in any one particular area. Offense is going to be kind of up and down here and there, which, at this point gets you to third place in the East. Again, third place is one spot above middle of the row. So this is a team that, is average to above average in spots, below average in a little bit, but third place is a very appropriate place to put Georgia State at this time. On the offensive side of the ball, our breakout player is going to be Alec Johnson, so presumed to be your starting center, been a rotational guy for a long time. But again, youngest guy in the O-line, youngest starter on offense, the guy with the most to prove. It's easier to start when you've been around the program forever. When this is year 3, though, and you're playing with guys who are in year 5, that's going to create a challenge for you. So how is he going to handle that adversity? How is he going to handle that change? But also understanding that the center is the first or second most important player on the O-line, depending on who you ask. So if he can step up and just control the pace of play, get in communication with the quarterback, hold off opposing D lines and linebackers from coming at you, it could be a pretty big statement for Johnson over the course of this season, heading into his upperclassman season over the course of the next few years. But I expect Johnson to make the most of his opportunity and take that chance on himself with an O-line that needs someone to step up, regardless of their age. But I think they're going to lean on the youngest kid because he's got the most upside long term. On the defensive side of the ball, I'll go with KD McDaniel. So he's coming in from UCF, a 3-star recruit in the class of 2019 that is just played around. Played around the Power 4 level. Started at Kentucky, then went to UCF, now at Georgia State. Just never really found his chance, and again, this is it. This is his last year of eligibility. I'm sure he wants to have a big moment for himself and for his team this year. I'm sure he wants to be one of those anchors on the D line for a Georgia State team that I think is progressively getting better. Time will tell what that actually looks like, though. But I would imagine McDaniel is going to want to have that moment in the sun and have that opportunity for himself and this team, make the most of his transfer year. Why did you come to Atlanta and what do you want to get done, and then make the most of that. So I'm taking McDaniel on defense, Johnson on offense for a Georgia State team that is trending in the correct direction. He's getting things done the way they need to get it done. It is just going to take a little bit of time before they get to the top of the mountain. So with that, we are narrowed down to 2 in the East. So by telling you who I have in second place, I am spoiling who I have winning the division, who I have going to the conference championship game. So with that, it's second in the East. When it's all said and done, this is a team that went to a conference championship game. Do we think they should have gone to a conference championship game due to the way the rules of Sun Belt and the NCAA worked out? I don't know. That's up for your debate, but generally speaking, it's one of the strongest teams in the conference. It's one that Power 4 schools are scared to struggle, scared to schedule against because we know that they can be world beaters when it's all said and done. I just don't think they have enough gas in the tank to get to the conference championship game this year. I don't think they're going to get a chance to head back, and that would be Appalachian State. So overall, there's definitely some promising pieces this year. Sean Clark is a fantastic head coach. They came in second last year, but due to James Madison not being eligible to go to their championship game, App State won their place. James Madison is eligible this year, and I do have them coming in first and going to their championship game. They did come in first last year, so now this is going to be for real. So, but Appalachian State has the right guy at head coach to make this happen. They have quite a few impressive personnel when it's all said and done on both sides of the ball. Maybe a little bit weaker on defense, but we will get to that in a minute. So if we look at the depth chart here, O-line is where I have the most questions. You got one starter coming back in Thornton Gentry. You bring in Thomas Schrader from Florida State. And the rest of these guys are predominantly rotational guys that are now getting their first-time starts on the offensive line. I'm interested to see what that looks like. I'm interested to see how that comes together. But from a returning production standpoint, there's quite a bit to be concerned about if you're Appalachian State on the offensive line perspective. Now, the skill positions, these guys are beasts. You have the best receiver room in the conference. Everyone here is phenomenal. Christian Horn, Mekhi Jackson, Caden Robinson, Eli Wilson. Just pick your poison there. This is the best receiver room in the conference. If you're gonna win games in App State, you're gonna go through the air, and you got the quarterback to back them up too. Joey Aguilar is one of the best starters in the Sun Belt. I don't think it's a particular debate at this point. And you have Kanye Roberts at running back, who's a top 3 running back in the conference when it's all said and done. App State on offense is loaded outside of the line. Like if you take those 5 players off the field and you're playing basically, if this was a flag football team and there's no blocking involved and it's just going one-on-one with receivers downfield, App State would go undefeated. But that's not the case here. So, App State's going to really need to rely on that line to step up, knowing that they have the skill position players everywhere else on the field to make some big plays happen. Now, on the defensive side of the ball, I do think it's a little bit of a step back. It's not as, it's not as much of a bottom out as it is more towards just a regression towards the mean. The D line will be below average, so I guess App State's struggling in the trenches right now. You do have Santana Hopper, who I think is one you should keep your eye on. He's had a pretty productive career so far at Appalachian State. He's going to capitalize on that this year. The linebacker room goes more towards the actual average. And that includes guys like Nate Johnson, who had a promising true freshman campaign. You add Caden Sullivan into the mix. He's someone to look out for. So there's definitely some players that are going to make this room a little bit deeper, a little bit more elevated than what we have right now. It's a matter of some of these younger guys that have not shown that experience stepping up to the plate and taking advantage of their opportunity. The DB room is going to, this is where mirrors the receivers. This is a top 3 DB room in the conference. I think a lot of it comes down to the transfers you bring in. Jason Chambers comes in from NC Central. Miles Farmer comes in from Syracuse. Varian Cole comes in from NCAA. So, and that's just the transfers. You add Jordan Favors and Ethan Johnson into the mix. And from there, you have a very deep, talented, you have a deep, talented secondary that is going to be a problem for just about everyone going up against them. So from there, on the offensive side of the ball, I will stay with the line. I'll go with Caden. I'm going to say it's Sweat. 3-star recruit last year, redshirted, sat out, saved some eligibility, but going to be expected to start this year. Going to be expected to play minutes. Whether it's in snaps, right? Whether that's on offense, whether it's on special teams, making his name known, knowing that he is the starting center for this team, and it's going to be one of the most important players on this offense when you think about where they are versus what they're going to get done. It's gonna require a big effort. There's no way around it, but I believe Sweat has the opportunity now to learn a lot as a redshirt freshman. I'm sure he learned a lot as a true freshman, just to get that game experience. Now he's going to get it, right? I'm sure App State has someone difficult out of conference in the first couple of weeks to earn those stripes, and Sweat's going to get that chance to be in a big environment and make the most of it. So I think he's going to be the center of not just of this year, but for the future of App State football. Now, on the defensive side of the ball, I'll go back to the D line. I'll go with Marcus Clark. So did pick up a sack against East Carolina last year, 3 tackle performance against ULM. So very promising as a sophomore last year. Just going to evolve more into a full-time starter and less of a rotational guy. So from there, I do think Clark is someone to watch out for. The line needs someone to step up. The line needs someone to, be that field general. We have them at the secondary. We have them in the linebackers, but we need someone in that front 3. I think Clark, being the junior that he is and being the, having the promising campaign that he had last year, is going to have a chance to do it again this year. So I think he's going to develop on those numbers for an Appalachian State team that, again, just on the outside looking in, but I'm looking at Clark on defense and Sweat on offense. So that does take us to our first place team in the East. That'd be James Madison. So now a different look James Madison team. Former coach is over at Indiana right now. Took a lot of his team with him. You bring in Bob Chesney, who was a great head coach at Holy Cross. That's at the FCS level. And it's his era now at James Madison. How are they going to react? How are they going to adjust? I think by staying the course and doing what they think works, right? I don't see a particular issue when it's all said and done. I think they only have one position group that I'm really questioning, but everything else is going to be top half or above. And it's going to be a good year again at James Madison. It's going to be a fun one overall. It's going to watch this team continue to grow and to develop into the FBS team they are now, as well as what they're going to accomplish moving forward. So look at the depth chart. So obviously going to be quite a lot of new faces when you bring in a new head coach. So let's just go piece by piece. Finally, you have a good offensive line, right? Bringing in Pat McMurtry from Holy Cross, that's a big upgrade. And then you have, or a big addition, and then you have three of your four starters in the other positions are coming back. That's Tyshawn Wyatt, that's Tanner Morris, and that's Cole Potts. So you have four starter caliber guys coming back at the Group of 5 level. That's not normal. So I think they're going to lean on that experience for James Madison this year, and it ends up being one of the best, offensive lines. I think it probably is the best line in the conference. That's the one thing they were able to keep with the coaching change. Receiver room is different. The biggest addition they made was Cam Ross coming out of UConn. He was their number one guy, or one of their number one guys. Now he's going to be the number one guy at James Madison. You bring in Breon Penny from San Diego State. He's one to keep an eye on for, but really outside of that, it's just not a particularly deep room at any capacity. Your quarterback now is going to be Dylan Morris. He was at Washington, one of the guys behind Michael Penix. Now he's going to be the guy at James Madison. I think he's a solid starter. I think he's going to be a top 5 quarterback in the conference when it's all said and done. Can he have a little bit of that Washington magic and bring it to James Madison and bring a conference championship their way? And then your running back comes in from North Texas. That is Ayo Adii. He's a 1,000-yard guy. I think he's going to be an above-average running back in this conference as well. So it doesn't matter where he plays, he's been successful, and it's going to be good for James Madison to have that extra piece of the puzzle right now. So on the defensive side of the ball, this is where I think James Madison thrives. So D-line is going to be top 5. You bring in Eric O'Neill from Long Island. That's a big pickup. Terry Lockett comes in from Syracuse. Lloyd Summerall comes in from USF. But really Eric O'Neill from Long Island is the one you got to watch out for. That guy has had some great experience there and is ready to make the jump to the FBS level. At the linebacker level, you have a 1-2 punch that is the best in the Sun Belt. Jacob Dobbs comes over from Holy Cross, and you add him to Taurus Jones, who comes back, and there's a lot of promising opportunities there for the two of them if they can gel instantly. Individually, I think they make for a very dangerous duo. So it's going to be a matter of how do they come together for this linebacker over the course of the season. And then the secondary is going to be average, but I think it's the worst one. The worst room on this defense. It's still an average room, right? If you look at who they've added, you bring in Ray Williams from Howard. That's an interesting pick. I like that. Terrence Spence comes in from Holy Cross. Ja'Kai Young comes in from Gardner Webb. And those three are playing alongside Jacob Thomas and then Chauncey Logan, who have a lot of returning experience and production on their end as well. So a lot of promise and a lot of upside. It's just it's a competitive conference in the secondary. And, I'm just looking to see, can those five gel together quickly and match up well against the rest of the conference at large. So on the offensive side of the ball, I'm going to go with Kia Wright. So that's going to be your tight end. He, has played in very, very limited time. 3-star recruit in the class of 2019. Just hasn't played a whole lot. Major contribution was an 11-yard catch against Coastal Carolina. I just want to put that in there so we had something. But, we want to see more of that this year. Maybe we do lean on the tight ends more, and, knowing that Wright is that starter opens up, an avenue for him to be productive and to, be a starter, be a productive starter. But just haven't seen it so far. Doesn't mean it can't happen. Doesn't mean it won't happen. Doesn't mean it hasn't happened. And it will happen eventually for someone on this team. And I think Wright's going to be the guy that steps up in his final year of eligibility to be an additional weapon for this James Madison offense. They're going to need a little bit of help on that, in that receiver room. And I put tight ends in that receiver room as just another weapon. But I think Wright's going to be that guy for James Madison over the course of this year. And on the defensive side of the ball, I'm going to go with Ja'Kai Young, comes in from Gardner-Webb. Has had 2 pick sixes over the course of last year. I can't find any tape of it because, again, it was Gardner-Webb versus Tennessee Tech and Gardner-Webb versus Eastern Kentucky. But the guy's a baller. The guy can play and make an indent in the scoreboard, everything along those lines. So if he can do it against Tennessee Tech and Eastern Kentucky, I want that to be the standard for him. I know that's a different level of competition down there, and maybe it won't be quite as easy for him, but that is a flashy sign that he is ready for the FBS level and he's ready for the group of 5. I think Young is going to have a fantastic senior year at nickelback for this James Madison team. And, as a result of that, it's going to, put everyone in a position to succeed as they, rally around this, big play machine for, a secondary that's already not that bad to begin with. So I'm taking Young on defense, Wright on offense for a James Madison team that will find themselves this time in the conference championship game where they are, where they should have been last year. So now we head over to the West, and this is going to be your traditional struggle bus at the bottom of the Sun Belt West. Brand new head coach, but they were not together last year. I don't think it's going to be the case this year. I think they're still going to be the bottom of the West any way you slice it. But with that, that'll be ULM, Louisiana, Monroe. They bring in Brian Vincent as their new head coach, who is the offensive coordinator at New Mexico. See how that works out. See how that comes together. He's got his work cut out for him. It's a team that didn't win a conference game all of last year. I think there's a legitimate chance that they don't win a conference game this year. There's just a very distinct skill discrepancy from where ULM is versus where the rest of the conference is. And it's not going to be made up in 1 year, especially when you look at how this roster is composed. So, when you take a look at it from kind of top to bottom. Now, I did analyze this roster before some of these spots were filled in. A lot of these were blank going up to, going up to when I put this together, which would have been in the last handful of days. So I'm clearly got some things figured out, but when I did it, there was quite a bit of questions across the board. The O-line will, looks all right. You do have a couple starters coming back in Elijah Fisher and Jay Mickle. So on that end, I had no idea where all these transfers were coming from. They were not on this board a week ago. So you got Elijah Fisher and Jay Mickle coming back. Those are some guys that you can definitely rely on the offensive line. Sam Carson has been a rotational guy that has made some starts. Interesting to see where he ends up and how much of a full-time starter he becomes. So definitely some promise on the O-line. That's a good place to start. The receiver room has very little returning production whatsoever. I'm just very interested in seeing what does become of that as a result, and who are we throwing to at in that room? Because right now nobody has done anything remotely resembling a level of production. You have Hunter Herring at quarterback. He has played sparingly. He should be your starter this year, but I don't know what to make of it because we barely seen him play. And then Hunter Smith at running back, who has also played sparingly, but a little bit more, should be more towards the average of offense. So it should be a run-first offense when you really think about it. Spread option gives you that opportunity, but we'll see what they end up doing over the course of the season. The D-line itself actually looks pretty good. If I do say so myself, Jalen Ware and Dylan Howell are the two guys that are really going to step up for this team. I think it's a top 5 D-line to give ULM with olive branch, but so you're running 2 deep at least of skilled, talented players. It's going to require someone else in that third spot to step up and make a case for themselves. The linebacker room is questionable because, again, at the time, I didn't know who was going to be in those starting roles. And, Carl Glass was the only one I had. And he's a serviceable linebacker that I think could make another big step for himself over the course of this year. And then you go to the DB room. This is where, again, things are going to be below average. You do have some interesting prospects in Trevor Randall, David Goodsey, Carlin Vigors. So you do have some options back there. You just need some pieces around it. I think right now it's going to be a below average room, but we'll see what it ends up looking like over the course of the year. So on the offensive side of the ball, I'll go with Parker Hill as your breakout receiver. I mean, I had to pick someone. There's just not a lot to pick from on the depth chart at the time. He was presumed to be the starter, redshirt sophomore, willing to make a jump. Unranked and unproven, but if he's in the slot, he's there for a reason. And I think he could be someone that ULM relies on, as someone has to step up in the passing game. Someone has to make a move, or in the receiving game. Excuse me. And the way I look at it, like the slot receiver is going to be the easiest one to hit. If you have issues with downfield accuracy, get the guy who's 5 yards over the middle, 10 yards over the middle, something along those lines. So I think Hill could be that guy for ULM, and could be the guy that ends up with the most touches over the course of the year as a result of that. And on the defensive side of the ball, I'm going to stick with Carl Glass. So did pick up a sack and a half against Texas A&M. I know they got blown out against Texas A&M, but it's still an SEC school. That's a big testament to what he's accomplished over the course of his career. Did pick up his own fumble against Army, so forced it out and picked it up. That's big. So turnover guy can get into the backfield, can make plays, can do what he needs to do. Again, you can get a sack against Texas A&M, you can get a sack against James Madison, right? It's the same general degree of difficulty. So I expect a big performance over the course of this year for Glass, as he ends up leading that linebacker room. So Glass on defense, Hill on offense for a ULL team that is going to have a tough time digging themselves out of the situation that they're currently. So heading over to 6th place, this team actually took a pretty big jump last year. I don't anticipate another big jump. I actually expect the team to regress in at least some sort of capacity. The offense itself looks good. We'll get to them in a little bit, but I think there's some position questions. I don't think their head coach is all that great. When it's all said and done, I think one good year may have saved him, but I think we go back to the way things were, and as a result of that, he may not coach around that much longer. And that is, of course, the champion of life himself, Butch Jones and Arkansas State. So year 4 over in Jonesboro for Butch Jones. Hadn't had a winning record. I mean, didn't have a winning record, but had made it to a bowl game in the first 2 years. I did take them to middle of the pack, had them tied for second. So a pretty sizable jump, but I do think we course correct back to the bottom of the conference where they've kind of been historically. Now, there are some bright spots of this team if we're going to review them fairly. So if we look at the depth chart, everything on offense is going to be top 5 or higher. It's definitely going to be an offense-first team. The O-line will be top 5. Bring back Macklin Thomas, Mekhi Butler, Jacob Bayer. So you've got 3 starters coming back. You bring in EJ Doma Ogar, who comes in from Missouri. That's a promising addition. Noah Smith has been a rotational guy that I think is going to get more starts. So the O-line is going to be fine. Receiver is going to be fine. You have Corey Rucker, Courtney Jackson, back there between the two of them. Those are 2 of the better receivers of the conference. Manny Stevenson is a quality tight end. Even Reagan Ely. So I mean, you go piece by piece, and I'm not worried about the way that the receiver room is composed. I'm not worried about the quarterback or running back. Jalen Raynor had a very promising freshman year for this team, and I imagine is going to develop as a result of that and have better numbers over the course of this year. Jaquez Cross has a very promising list of experiences as well. 700-yard guy, 7 touchdown guy, and ready to eclipse the 1,000-yard mark and beyond. So I think those are both top 3 guys in the conference. Defense falls off a little bit. D-line will be below average. I do like Nate Marty in the middle there. He's an impact player. You bring in Noah Collins from Georgia Tech. That's an interesting pickup, one to watch for. But really, maybe outside of Marty, it does thin out quite a bit, which does put them at that below average mark. Linebacker room does take them off the top 5, really because of the performance of Charles Wilkes. That's the big one here. So looking at Wilkes to carry this team in that position group and be one of the better linebackers in the conference as a result of that. And then the DB room is, it's one of the better ones from what we've seen. So you add in, Justin Hodges is there, but really, Trevion Thomas, Justin Parks, Jordan Mahoney, everyone along those lines. So, and then Mahoney comes in from UMass. That's a good pickup as well. So, not worried about how that's going to look from top to bottom. So, secondary will be all right for me as far as I'm concerned. So, on the offensive side of the ball, I will go with our transfer from Missouri, EJ Doma Ogar, 4-star in 2019. I would have listed that if he was a 3-star. Where those don't go to Arkansas State all that often. So 4-star definitely don't either. This guy who played predominantly as a rotational guy, and just didn't get that playing time over in Columbia, and is looking for it in his new home. I think he's going to get it, and if he lives up to that 4-star potential, maybe he has that 4-star heart, right, Butch Jones? But if that's the case, then Arkansas State is going to get a very strong offensive line that they can develop this year and beyond. Now, on the defensive side of the ball, I'm going to go with Noah Collins. This guy comes in from Georgia Tech. He did pick up a sack against UCF. I think that was their bowl game last year. And again, if you can get a sack against UCF, you can get a sack against ULM, you can get a sack against James Madison. So I expect more of that over the course of this year. And again, knowing that he's a senior and he's out of eligibility, that he's going to want to make the most of it. So I'm looking at Collins to step up on defense, and then Doma Ogar on offense for a Arkansas State team that I think, unfortunately, is going to go take a step back and not be as productive as they were last year. So on to 5th place. This is another team that you know, was towards the middle of the conference when we think about it. I anticipate them to be towards the middle of the conference, towards the middle of the division again this year. I think the regression they've had over the last couple of years really highlights the importance of their previous head coach, and look at where he went off to. So it just hasn't been the same since that certain individual left. So in fifth place, we get Louisiana, the former home of one Billy Napier, and they have not been the same since he went to games. So funny. Maybe he is the the coach that you need him to be, can elevate a program. But that's for our SEC video. We're going to go back to Louisiana for a second. So year 3 of Michael Desormeaux. I'm going to guess that's how you say that. He's in the right school. That is a Cajun name. He is where he belongs. But 5th place last year, got him 5th place this year. Around 500 last year, I got him around 500 this year. I think it's just going to be more of what's happened in the past. There's some interesting rooms on this team. A couple that sink below the average, some that bring it up past the average. That is going to keep them right around that 500 mark all year long. So if we look at the depth chart, basically all in-house, good or bad, any way that you slice it. O-line will be average. You bring back AJ Gilly and you bring back Jax Harrington. The rest of these guys are rotational players that don't have a ton of starts, if any, under their belt. But 2 out of 5 is a good place to begin, and you can set the tone for the course of the season. Your receiver room is going to be average. I do like Terrence Carter as a tight end. I think he's an underrated player. Jacob Bernard as well as Robert Williams. So there's pieces here to work around over the course of this season. That's the course of how things work out for this team. You have Chandler Fields at quarterback again. I think he is, say it with me, average. I think he's good enough to carry this team. I don't think you lose games with Fields. I don't think you win a whole lot of them. I think you just play the game the way that it is, and it comes out the way it comes out. And then your running back is Draylen Washington. He does not have a lot of experience in my eyes. He doesn't have a lot of snaps under his belt, and is going to get the chance to do so over the course of the season. So on the defensive side of the ball, your D-line does not have a lot of returning production. You bring in Fitzgerald West from LSU. You pair him with mainly Mason Narcisse. I'm going to say that's how you pronounce it, at nose tackle. That's the one to look out for. But it's really a one-deep D-line, and you want to see that get stronger over the course of this season, and making everyone better. At the linebacker room, KJ Osai is your big one in the middle. You can make an argument for Cameron Whitfield. You can make an argument for Caleb Edwards as well. So it's definitely top heavy with some depth pieces along the way. Got to make sure everything is in a good spot there. But the linebacker room should be solid. Should be average to above average. The DB room is going to be the best room on the defense, if not the whole team. It'll be a top 5 room. Tyrone Lewis is a phenomenal safety. So is Cortland Flowers. You got Keon Martin at corner. That's a big player back there. So you got 3 out of 5 that are legit playmakers from top to bottom. And as a result, you have a top 5 room, that I think is going to be a strength of this defense, if not the team overall. Now, on the offensive side of the ball, we're going to go with Draylen Washington as your breakout player. I don't know what that first one was supposed to say. 88 yards for sure. Touchdown. I'm guessing this is against Northwestern State, because that's what I've got video for, and then picked up a receiving touchdown against Texas State. So that is a dual threat type of performance. Someone who can help out in the flat, somebody who can go long on a slant, anything along those lines. But we do have the run against Northwestern State. So just avoids everything. And again, I know it's local television, does get touched, but runs through it. Has having his moments, good for him. So again, looks like a hard runner. Looks like he's gonna shake off any challengers or anything along those lines like that. So I think Washington should have a solid, productive year for Louisiana. Maybe get into the 700-yard range, maybe get to the 5-touchdown range, and be back for his senior year next year, ready for more. So on the defensive side of the ball, I'm going to go with Fitzgerald West Jr. So again, comes in from LSU, 3-star recruit in 2022. Those do not make their way to Louisiana all that often, especially a guy who was seen by LSU, and then from there, just didn't see the field, didn't get that playing time he was looking for. Going to find a new home in Lafayette, and looking to make a name for himself as a local kid. Just going to be a matter of time to see how that happens and how that works out. But again, if you get seen by Brian Kelly and you get seen by an LSU team, and you go over to Louisiana and you're ready to make a start, having that SEC chip on your shoulder is going to help out, in the long term, building the morale of that defensive line. So I'm taking West on defense, Washington on offense for a Louisiana team that is going to stick right around where they were last year. I don't see it being much better. I don't see it being much worse. Just right around where things ended up. So now we head over to fourth place. This is a team I think is going to make the biggest jump potentially year. Them or what? Georgia State maybe. But a team that was towards the bottom of the conference last year, I got them towards the middle this year, and I think there's a lot of promising pieces, specifically on the defense. But I think they got the right coach when it's all said and done, and someone that I think is going to turn this team around quick, and that is going to be Southern Miss with Will Hall. So Will Hall's in there at year 4, struggled last year with that 3-win season. I got them going to a bowl game. I got them at least 500. I think he is the right guy for the job. I think he is the guy that's going to put this team together. He's built a lot of this team through the transfer portal this offseason, and I think the results are going to speak for themselves shortly. So with that, we go to our depth chart, and we see who's doing what. So we're going to start on the offensive line, bringing in a lot of new faces. I like the addition of Zach Conte. He comes in from Eastern Michigan. Greg Nunnery comes in from JUCO. So it's not going to be a great offensive line, but it will get the job done. It'll be a below average one from a pure returning production standpoint. Not a lot of returning production at the receiver room. Really just Tia Kellen Mims, and he's staying with the program. He's been there. This is year 3 for him. Outside him, it's a lot of new faces. It's a lot of guys that are finding their voice. Well, someone's going to have to, soon. The quarterback is now Tate Rodmaker. He comes in from Florida State. He'll be all right, probably below average. Just, again, was the backup at Florida State and, has a new home as a starter. What is that going to look like for Southern Miss this year? And then you got Rodriguez Clark. He'll be the best part of this offense at running back. I'm sure he wants to keep developing. He's a 500-yard guy in the pass. I'm sure he wants to get to 700 or 800 if possible. But it's going to be an okay offense, which again puts them at 4th place in the conference, just being okay enough, right? So I think Southern Miss will be all right on offense. Defense, it's kind of like an hourglass, right? Where you have a little bit of stuff at the top, a little bit at the bottom. D-line will be impressive. It's going to be a top 3 D-line in the conference. Jalen Williams is going to be really all of them. Jalen Williams, Kristen Booth, Berdarius Lewis, Jaleel Clemens. So I'm not worried about D-line in any capacity. They've shown us year over year that they're going to make it, the impact that they intend to. If you look at the linebacker room, they'll be below average. You bring in Trey Pinkney from Coastal Carolina. That's a big addition. Pair him up with Jalen Sims. It'll be not great. It'll be. I mean, it's a two-man show. They're just young, less experienced guys that are looking to continue to grow and to develop. And in the secondary, kind of more of the same. You bring in Will James from Mississippi State. He's a young guy. Dylan Lawrence is going to be one of the best secondary, DBs in the conference. So it's quite an exchange of ideas in this, drop off or a pickup of players anywhere that you go. But at least having that one player, Dylan Lawrence, rise to the occasion is going to help out a lot. So on the offensive side of the ball, I'm going to go with Dakota Thomas. He comes in from junior college, 3-star recruit over the course of the last cycle coming out of JUCO. And again, if you're coming from, where's he from? Copiah Lincoln. That's Copiah Lincoln Community College. Started at Western Kentucky before, so just a guy that didn't find a spot there, drops down JUCO, now back up to Southern Miss. And, again, redshirt junior, ready to prove himself, ready to make a name for himself. Hasn't happened yet, but, at least in my eyes, I think it's going to happen soon. So, I think Thomas is going to be starting out there this year. And if you're ready to make the jump from JUCO to, FBS or JUCO to Power 4 or Group 5, wherever you end up, you're there for a reason. So I think Thomas is going to be the guy for Southern Miss this year. He's going to, get his numbers up, make himself available, be an additional option for Tate Rodmaker to, give the ball out to. Now, on the defensive side of the ball, I'm going to stick with the transfers, and I'm going to go with Will James out of Mississippi State. 3-star recruit in the class of 2023. So, redshirt Mississippi State said, this isn't for me. I'm going to Southern Miss. So, stays in state. But again, going from SEC to Sun Belt means that, he's making the calculated move of how do I improve and how do I get that playing time. This is where I think transfer portal makes things good for people, because if he stuck around at Mississippi State, he'd be just sitting on the bench this year, and now he's going to be a starter at a Group of 5 school. That's going to do wonders for his confidence. It's going to do wonders for his development, and from there, it's going to elevate his playing time and his statistics over the course of this year. He's going to be the youngest starter back there on defense, and maybe he's the voice of reason that they need to take a step as a unit. So I'm taking James on defense and Thomas on offense for a Southern Miss team that I anticipate is going to, take the step in the right direction that they need to take. So now we head over to our third place team. This is a team with a lot of eyes around. This is a team that, I think a lot of people are taking to win the conference championship. I don't have them that high on here, but doing my review, especially on the offensive side of the ball, I can see why. This team is talented. They got a good head coach. They did well last year, and they're going to be a threat to win the division of the conference. I just have them a little bit falling a little bit short because the defense isn't there, but that will be Texas State. So G.J. Kenny is back after a good year one, 8-5, second place in the West. I have them third place in the West, 8-5. Obviously send them to a bowl game. I have them right around that, if not better. So, keep your eyes peeled for Texas State this year. I think this is one I could be wrong and they end up in the conference championship game, and I wouldn't be surprised. It's a powerhouse offense. A lot of great players coming in or returning. Defense has some highlights, some position groups I wish were a little bit better. I think that's what keeps them out of it. But Texas State is looking good this year. Looking at the depth chart, every offensive group I'm seeing is top 2 in the conference returning production. O-line has 4 returners coming back. Jametto, Obigo, Dorian Straw, Nash Jones, and then you bring in Telek Lockett from ULM, who is a starter there. So 4 starter caliber guys coming in, and we got 1 rotational guy in Chase Todd. What's he going to do as a full-time starter? But the other 4 around him have that experience. That's huge. If you look at the receiver room, Joey Hobart on his own basically makes us a top 2 receiver. But then you add from Boston College, Jaden Williams. Then you have Cole Wilson back there, who's a touchdown guy in his own respect. The receiver room is stacked. There's options at every position or every time, whether it's the X, the Z, or the slot, someone is going to be open as a result of their skills. You have Jordan McLeod comes in as quarterback from James Madison. He's the best quarterback in the conference on arrival, right? I mean, he came from James Madison where he was the best in the conference already. Now he just goes to another conference school and is ready to, make a name for himself on that campus. And then you have Ismail Mahdi, who I think is the number 1 running back in the conference. So he's a 1,300-yard guy. He's a 10 touchdown guy. What's he going to do as the feature back again? What type of improvement is he going to make? So I look at it from all those perspectives where this offense is going to click. This offense is going to fire on every single cylinder. If you look at the defensive side of the ball, the D-line is going to be phenomenal as well, top 2 in its own right. Ben Bell is there to make an impact, make a difference. Stephen Parker comes in. He's from Incarnate Word. He's a 7-sack guy at Incarnate Word in 1 season. I'm sure that's going to translate over to Texas State. So it is a deep and talented defensive line with some top-end talent and then some pieces along the way that spruce it up. If you look at the linebacker room, it is both transfers. So you have Manny Nunnery, he comes in from Florida. You have Traylon Payne, he comes in from Houston. So new look there. I think it's going to be nothing special. I think it's the weakness of this defense is that top 2 duo. Just because neither has been particularly productive in their previous roles. Who's going to step up amongst them to lead this linebacker room over the course of this year? And then the cornerback or the DB room, all returning guys, and top 5 room as a result. Caleb Culp is when you got to look at Chris Mills at corner, Torrey Spears at the safety, Alonzo Edwards at the star. So, again, just, talent from top to bottom. I'm not worried about the majority of this team. I have them 3rd for a reason, but, I mean, if you had them in a higher level position, I have them like 1 game short of a conference championship, basically. So, any way you slice it, Texas State is due for a good year. Now, on the offensive side of the ball, my breakout player is going to be Chase Todd. This is a 3-star recruit in the class of 2019. Again, we're predominantly a rotational guy, but someone who is presumed to be the full-time starter this year. I think Todd has again, 3-star recruit. Those don't go to Texas State all too often. So this is a guy that you think is going to be your future. Well, not future, but because again, redshirt senior, this is it. But looking to establish himself as that center for Texas State this year and make the most of his last year of eligibility. You got 4 starters around him coming back. He's going to be the 5th piece of the puzzle. And if the line goes down, it's probably because of him. If it becomes elite, it's probably because of him. A lot of pressure rests on his shoulders as a less experienced guy, but I think he's going to rise to the occasion for Texas State. And then on the defensive side of the ball, we got Traylon Payne from comes in from Houston. Did pick up a sack against Baylor. I think we've got that clip here. So smack a huge drop. I mean, just like rips through the line. A big sack. That's 10 yards at minimum, right? Let's watch that one more time. So he's there. I mean, no one gets him. No one gets him. Like, no one picks him up. Just, head straight for, I think it's Jerry Bohannon. or Blake Shippen, one of the two. So I just want to see how long this sack is. So let's take a look. This is on the 44, let's say. That's at least 10 yards, and it's probably closer to 12. That is a big play. That's against, again, a Power 4 school. It looks like it's on the road. So if that's the case, like, again, you can get a big sack like that against Baylor. You can get a big sack like that against Southern Miss, right? That shouldn't be an issue. So he can step up and he can deliver week after week. He'll be that leader that this linebacker that Texas State is looking for if they're going to make that jump. So I'm taking Payne on defense. I'm taking Todd on offense for a Texas State team that is going to double down on what they've accomplished last year and see more of it this year. So as we move to our top two, it does put us in a place now where by revealing second, I tell you who James Madison will be playing in our conference championship game. So in second place, team with a new head coach, a team that did well last year and made it to their conference championship game last year, but I think unfortunately it's just going to be one step behind getting to that game again this year. So no chance to, no chance for revenge or redemption, no chance to, to get that crown. So in second place, I am going to go with Troy, which means South Alabama is going to go up against James Madison for the Sun Belt Conference Championship. So Gerard Parker is now the head coach at Troy. He comes in as Notre Dame's offensive coordinator. I think it's going to be interesting to see what that adjustment looks like. Notre Dame's offense is a little bit different than what you see at the Sun Belt. So how's that come to play for Troy and the rest of this team? Time will tell, but I think Troy's going to pick up right where they left off and have another productive year. They had an 11 win season last year. I don't think they get back to that number specifically, but I think they get real close. So with that, we go to their depth chart. You bring a couple guys in, on both sides of the ball. I think the defense is where you're going to struggle most, but we'll get to that in a second. O-line has a lot of potential and a lot of promise. You bring in Zarian Hudson from JUCO, have two starters coming back in Eli Russ and Daniel King, and the rest of the line is predominantly rotational players. I think it's going to be an average O-line. Your receiver room is also average, but has a lot of upside. You have Zariah Beeson coming in from JUCO. Devontae Ross is there back. I like Ethan Connor at tight end, one of your better ones in the conference as a result. So it should be a competitive receiver room anywhere that you look at it. Bruce Crowder as your quarterback has played very, very little. I can't evaluate someone that I can't see play. So we will see what that looks like for Troy this year. But having a new quarterback could raise some questions. It could elevate them. I mean, who knows, right? None of us have really seen the kid play, but our lack of tape on him and that lack of evaluation on him, it hurts both ways, right? It doesn't help us identify strengths. It doesn't help us identify weaknesses. So time's going to tell. And then, Damian Taylor at running back, he's going to be, again, another, low snap guy, another inexperienced guy that you need to see more of the field before we can make a solid decision on him. So, again, those two are going to be tough to evaluate and therefore tough to analyze on my end. If you look at the defensive side of the ball, outside of the linebacker room, I got some problems. I got some concerns. Luis Medina comes back on the D-line, but outside of that, you don't have a lot of returning production. One or more of those guys is going to have to step up. I think it's capable. I think that's what puts Troy in second, but when it comes to who's purely coming back right now, it's tough to gauge. At the linebacker room, you have two strong guys in Jordan Stringer and Terry Thomas. Those are some players that you got to keep an eye out for. Those are players that have established themselves and are looking for more over the course of the season. And if you look at the DB room, you bring in Devin Lafayette from Northern Illinois. I think that's a big addition when you really consider everything. You bring in Cecil Powell. He comes in from NC State. That's a big addition. Ian Connerly Goodley comes in from Southeast Louisiana. He's a little bit more improved and interested to see how that works out. But yeah, I mean, you have some upside. You have some pieces that we know a lot about. It's just these younger guys that we haven't seen play yet. What are they going to look like for Troy? How are they going to make a contribution? Because right now we haven't seen it. So the pieces that we have seen look good, but the pieces around them are where we need someone to step up. So on the offensive side of the ball, I am going to go with Goose Crowder. So again, played very sparingly over the course of last season. Had 49 yards passing at Kansas State. And that was a solid Kansas State team. That's a Power 4 school. Had a passing touchdown against ULM. Again, that's your conference foe. If you can pass against them, you can pass against the whole conference. I think the pieces are in place for Troy to succeed around Crowder. It's a matter of Crowder step up to that to that level and make an impact for this team. So I'm going to take Crowder on offense. I see establishing himself as the quarterback of the present and the future for Troy. And then on defense, I'll go with Julian Peterson. So picked up 1.5 sacks against Arkansas State and a 2 tackle performance against ULM. Those are promising numbers to get us to where we are. It makes us believe that, again, if you can do a sack, 1.5 sack against Arkansas State, you can do it against Georgia State. You can do it against Georgia Southern. You can do it against ULM. You can do it against the entire conference, right? So if you can do it once, you can do it ever. Same with 2 tackles against ULM. You can do it against Louisiana Monroe. You can do it against Louisiana. You can do it against Texas State. You're going to do it where you're needed. And I think Peterson is going to be needed in that nose tackle spot, knowing that there's not a ton of depth and returning production on the defensive line, and they're going to need someone to step up and deliver. I think Peterson is that guy for Troy, as they are just going to be on the outside of making the conference championship game this year. So Peterson on defense, Crowder on offense for another productive year for Troy and year one head coach Gerard Parker. So now we're going to head to the number 1 team in the Sun Belt West. So that's going to be South Alabama. Kane Womack, in year 4, dipped a little bit last year, right around the average. I think they come storming back this year. Again, some similar questions that I had with them with Troy, which does make Texas State a popular option. That I don't have those immediate questions, but with South Alabama, can a certain level of player reach their potential this year? I think so. We just haven't seen it yet. So with that, go to the depth chart. O-line has some returning production. You get Jordan Davis. He has some good starts under his belt, as does Vise. A lot of other rotational guys. You bring in Malachi Preciado from Purdue. So it's going to be a below average offensive line, but it's one that can gel together quickly and make the most of their starting opportunity. The receiver room is going to be one of the better ones in the conference. You have 2 800-yard guys in the past with Devin Wassine and Jamal Pritchett. You have an impressive tight end, DJ Thomas Jones. So not worried about that one. Not worried about how that all comes together. And then at quarterback, you're starting Gio Lopez as a redshirt freshman. Don't have a lot of information on him. Don't have a lot of scouting on him. So what does that look like for South Alabama this year with a quarterback that has very sparingly seen the field, alongside a running back, Braylon McReynolds, who has barely seen the field in his own right? So a lot of question marks and a lot of young players on this team. But I think they pull it together early in the season. And, I I think the benefit of having a young unit is if you do well, then the future is very bright for everyone. And I think that is going to be the case for South Alabama. On the defensive side of the ball, the D line is going to be average, like Wycavius Thomas, and then Akil Washington. He comes in from Liberty, so there's some promising pieces on that point. You're at least two deep in one capacity. It's a matter of how does the rest of the line step up? But right now, I think it's a good enough D line to apply the pressure needed. The linebacker room, I got some questions. Just young guys that have not made an impact at this time. They're going to have to make an impact soon. South Alabama in general is a pretty young team. So just curious how this all comes together, because the linebacker room as of right now does not have anyone I can immediately identify and say that's the guy you want to look out for. Someone will step up. It's just going to be a matter of who, and then when that happens. And then on the secondary, it's going to be a below average room. It's going to be one of the weaker ones from a returning production standpoint. Ricky Fletcher and Jaden Boisine. That's what his brothers on offense, right? Devin Boisine. I thought I had seen that name. So Jaden Boisine and then Ricky Fletcher are your only real returning production back there. You bring in Ladarius Webb from Oklahoma State. You add Jordan Scruggs from JUCO, but outside of those two, it's a lot of guys that are going to try to prove it over the course of this year. I like Boisine in particular as that safety, but someone is going to have to rise to the occasion in the secondary for this team to go to a conference championship game, get a playoff spot, anything along those lines. So with that on offense, I'm going to go with Braylon Reynolds. Oh, the video is no longer. That is unfortunate. Okay. Alrighty, so no film this day, but 71-yard rushing against Eastern Michigan, 70-yard receiving against Texas State. I think I was going to have that run against Eastern Michigan, but oh well. Sorry the guy took his channel down, but again, a guy who just is going to have the chance to be that starter, be that contributor, and be someone that they're going to focus the whole running game on, right? So, a guy who's never found the end zone in his collegiate career, I'm sure would like to find the end zone and would like to get that first rushing touchdown as a redshirt sophomore this year. Been there 2 years, never scored. I'm sure he's going to want to punch it in this year. I'm sure he's going to want to hit the 500-yard mark. I'm sure he's going to want to hit the 100 carry mark. All of those things. I think he's capable of doing it. I think the run game, in theory, is the easiest one to get started. If you have a serviceable offensive line and you have a guy that has good ball carrier vision, I think Wayne Robbins can be that guy for South Alabama as they begin their quest for an appearance in the conference championship game. And then, that's definitely done. Okay. So now we have our defensive breakout player. I'm going to go with Blaine Myrick. So again, one of those linebackers is going to have to step up. In this case, Myrick had a 4-tackle performance against Eastern Michigan last year. I think that was their bowl game. Don't quote me on it. And then, 3-star recruit, the class of 22. Those do not make their way down to South Alabama all that often, so you got to prioritize them when they're there. Again, this is year 3 for him at the program. Going to keep developing, keep growing, but the opportunities are there for him to make this happen. So I think Myrick is going to have that breakout. You're knowing that someone in that linebacker room is going to have to step up. He's the youngest guy out there. I think he's going to be the youngest starter on defense this year. That's going to go a long way with earning trust with teammates. That they're going to put him in the same trenches as everyone else, and he's going to rise to the occasion. That first big play is going to earn him a lot of respect with the guys around him. But I think Myrick is due for a big year, being one of the younger guys and being in a position of need for this South Alabama defense as they make their way to the conference championship game on the backs of big performances of Myrick on defense and Reynolds on offense. So, just back to the conference standings one last time to go division by division. And as a reminder, some of these are interchangeable. I'm not married to the idea that certain teams have to finish in certain positions. So let's start with the East. Old Dominion, I have in 7th. Georgia Southern, I have in 6th. Those are locked in stone. Coastal Carolina and Marshall, I think you could flip. I have them the way that I have them, for a reason. But if you wanted to flip those two, wouldn't be mad. Georgia State at 3rd, that's fine. App State in 2nd. James Madison at 1st. I think all that's going to stay the same. And then on the West Division, Monroe in 7th. I think that's going to stay as it is. Arkansas State and Louisiana, I think you could flip those two and it would make sense for me. Southern Miss at 4, I think it's fine. Texas State at 3rd is fine. If you wanted to flip South Alabama and Troy, I would understand. So generally speaking, a pretty standard year for a lot of these teams. I don't think too much of what we're seeing is going to get rid of the expectations that we've historically had for a lot of these guys. But when it comes to James Madison versus South Alabama, who's going to take that home? Is it going to be James Madison earning their conference championship after being robbed of an appearance last year? Is it going to be South Alabama as kind of the newcomer to the game, being a spoiler for all involved? So with that, my Sun Belt Conference champion prediction is officially James Madison. So I'm taking James Madison. This is a quality team from top to bottom. They are going to be a top 25 team in that final playoff ranking. They're going to be in contention for that number 12 playoff spot, everything like that. Just watch. I got no concern with this team in any capacity, and they're well coached, even with a first year head coach, and I anticipate nothing short of a conference championship appearance, if not a win. So that is my official prediction for the Sun Belt. What did I get right? What did I get wrong? Comment below, like, subscribe, all that fun stuff. And thank you for tuning into another conference preview video. Next week, I still need to do the independents in the Pac-12. So we got one video left for this series. I'm going to do that all in one go because the Pac-12 is basically independent at this point. They're just Mountain West Light. So I'm going to put that all in one video. And I'm going to add something a little bit special onto it just because, again, that's 5 teams. We want this to be a little bit meatier. And then that's it. That series will be all done. And then we got to do some prep work for the season, right? I'm recording this. It is technically August 17th, about 1:30 a.m., which means 1 week from right now, we'll be on football Saturday. So can't wait for it. Looking to enjoy that experience with you all. So thanks for tuning in. Like, comment, subscribe, and tune in next time for our final preview video of 2024.